A boy was walking his bumblebee. He tied it to a string. The sky was lit up with violet light. A bird began to sing a song of sixpence.
Okay, and I think we're live. Hello, world.
Hello!
So this is episode 3 of the Pages podcast. Our April book was Blood Will Out by Walter Kirn. This was my pick.
Wah, wah.
And I picked it for a really good reason.
I asked her to.
Yeah, I cheated a little bit. But I heard an NPR, it wasn't an interview, I think it was just a book review. And they were comparing this book to In Cold Blood by Truman Capote, which I read, I don't know, at some point a long time ago, and loved. So I was like, oh, this sounds great. It wasn't terrible. It was interesting. But it was just okay.
Ditto.
Yeah.
Like, it was a good book. It was pleasant read-ish.
Yeah.
But it wasn't anything that really grabbed me.
It was no In Cold Blood.
Yeah, well, no. Not that we were making it live up to those expectations, but, it wasn't. It for me, I didn't like the main character, which usually is not a problem for me. I can not like people and still like them. I'm totally okay with that.
I can too.
But he came off as had a superiority complex, and he was sexist to boot, and he didn't like geeks very much, and like there were just every now and then these little things that were like degrading to people who drew centaurs for a living. I was like, oh, what's your problem with that?
Yeah, the author is kind of a weird guy, or he came off as a weird guy in the book. And I guess I should say the premise of the book, and spoilers, not a spoiler for your podcast. So the author, he got involved with this guy who claimed to be a Rockefeller, and he believed he was Rockefeller. Everybody believed he was Rockefeller. And ended up, he initially was delivering a dog, and I think that was kind of my first, like, I really don't like this guy. Because the dog was a rescue. It was in really bad shape. It had been shot and run over, and was very sad. And I think his point was that, why would you let an animal in this condition, continue to live and suffer? And I get that, but he was just so unempathetic. I think he thought he was being empathetic, but
I was willing to write that part off as I was reading it, because he did say, he didn't feel any compassion towards this animal. He felt repulsion, and he did use the word repulsed.
Right.
And I've seen animals in that shape. I've never been a person that is even mildly not an animal person. I love them so much I could never be repulsed no matter what condition they're in. But I understand, from Fault in Our Stars, their illness repulses. It's a part of our... So I figured maybe he's talking about that gut instinct. Mm-hmm. And I have seen animals in conditions where I'm like, oh God, this poor thing needs to be put down. Right. So I thought, okay, maybe we're talking about that. Let's let this guy keep going. The other thing about his constant, from his own constant in reinforming us of how educated and what a great author he is, I've got to believe that he knows how to write and therefore knew what he was doing when he was putting his character flaws in. So I think him writing negatively about himself, even in that way that didn't seem like it wasn't like self-effacing. It was just writing in this off-putting tone.
Mm-hmm.
I think that might have been a major plot point for him. I think when he was writing that, he was trying to show, it didn't work for me.
Yeah, it didn't work for me either. I mean, he just came off as very unlikable. And it was numerous things. It was the fact that, I mean, he had also run over, I think it's somebody's dog at some point.
He ran over another rescue dog.
And just...
almost ran over his son. Which,
yeah.
honestly, the running over things, I was like, that's a weird happenstance, maybe. And that I could write off as, like, being one of those people that are just really scatterbrained. And I feel really bad for those people. It must suck.
It was just the way he was so cold in relating those stories. I mean, you almost run over your kid. That's like panic level.
Although he wrote about it cold.
And he did say he was panicked, but
he
was just like, I was panicked.
I read that one as he was relaying it back in this removed because he had to be removed from it. Because he did say several times that his entire life changed after that instance.
Yeah.
Like there was the divorce after that, and I got the impression that that was a direct result of him changing because he was so freaked out.
Maybe.
But it didn't come through in the writing.
Yeah. And he had married this really young girl, and I don't know. He was kind of creepy. And like, and that was kind of interesting is that he was not the same level of creepy as the fake Rockefeller. Clark was the fake name. His real name was, I don't want to say Gewürztraminer, but that's wine. I'm not sure I know how to say it. Gehartstreiter.
Yeah, it's German.
It's German. He originally came from Germany. He was kind of ran away, came to America, was just a con artist and made his way that way and lived under a number of aliases and and it comes out that Walter Kirn has this long friendship with him.
That's the author.
Yeah, that's the author.
15 years, I think.
Yeah. And there's all this weirdness, and there's stuff that you would think that he would pick up on as this guy being a fake, but he is so enamored of the wealth and status that this man claims to have that he just, I think, wants to believe it and wants to be around this guy, even though he doesn't like him very much. But Clark ends up getting married and then having a kid and separating from his wife, and then he kidnaps the kid and gets caught as being an imposter and gets connected to a murder out in California. And so the whole story was very interesting, but whereas, I don't know, I remember in Cold Blood, like, you just being very involved and you don't, it's not so much that you care about the characters, you have that, you get the authors wanting to understand why, and that's the reason he is writing this book and kind of having this relationship with the murderers. And in this one, it's kind of a look how I was duped. Isn't this weird?
Yeah, I felt like the half of the story that was interesting to me was the Clark Rockefeller story. And I felt like he was trying to insert himself and force his own psychosis into that story. And I think that he was trying to, when I was saying that he was, the way he was writing was part of the plot, I think he was trying to say, this is how I am like Clark Rockefeller. But instead of it coming off as two parallel stories, it came off to me as one interesting story and one story that's trying to be forced into this
Yeah,
and onto.
I can see that.
Like a really bad superimposed image
Right.
on top of. And it didn't merge well enough, and the more he tried, the more forced it felt.
Yeah.
And by the time I got to the end of the book, I couldn't see them as one story. It was two separate stories.
Yeah, and I kind of feel the same way. And two interesting, but not entirely compelling stories. And I think that was in the way it was told rather than...
Mm-hmm.
So...
There wasn't enough detail and meat in the story.
There wasn't enough depth. I mean, the reviews are really good.
The content that was there, I think, could have been done in about half the number of pages, and then been a really, possibly very good book. I also had problems with the writing style, whereas to Fault in Our Stars, the first one we did, was very straightforward and quick reading, and very well written. And then Bobcat was very floridly written and very beautiful for the way it was composed and the way it made you stop and think.
Right.
This one was very florid. Like, I would stumble over these sentences.
Right.
There was just... It looked like a high school student trying to prove to you that he's
kind
really
of
smart.
Snobby, yeah.
So
or pompous, maybe it's better.
Yeah, and it wasn't even purposefully done. Like, most of the words just looked like they were... I can use a bigger word to describe this, so I will.
Right.
And it didn't add meaning. And the reason I brought up the other stories is because, like in Bobcat, it's not that I don't like florid writing.
Oh, yeah, I often
can
love
do
it.
huge, wonderfully, but when I stop to think about a sentence, I want it to be because the words that are in it have added another layer of meaning.
Right.
Not because I'm trying to figure out what you're saying, and then I find out that what you're saying is just this short little thing.
Right.
So that turned me off a little
bit. And I'd listened to it, but that still came through. And yeah, I just, it was okay, it was interesting, but it was not great. So,
not my favorite so far. Not horrible, but not my favorite.
Yeah.
We did both recently read, which I thought was really interesting because both of us, at the same time we were reading this, kept thinking back to a book that we had both read very recently and how odd it was that they were very parallel in meaning and storyline, was Gone Girl.
Yeah.
And we both read it independently.
I actually read it.
I happened to get it on a rental, and I was going to Europe, so I had a lot of plane time.
Right. And I had read it a while ago, but when you mentioned that you read it, I was like, oh, yeah, and that has a lot of parallels. So I listened to it this time. I read it, Kindle book read it the first time, and listened to it this time. And I was actually really glad that I did, just because I remembered liking it, but I don't have great retention. Mm-hmm. So it was interesting to revisit it, and already knowing all the twists and stuff. Just hearing it again was
absolutely
good.
For those of you who are not familiar, Gone Girl is one of those that are really popular right now. It's on all of the lists of what you're supposed to read. And it's basically a story in two parts. Spoiler alert for that one. First half...
A big spoiler. Really. You probably don't want to hear it if you haven't.
If you know the second half.
Or if you want to go see the movie, because the movie is coming.
Oh, good point. First half of the book is two storytellers, diary and husband, going through essentially...
Diary Amy.
Diary Amy. And several years, like 5 years of us hearing about how Amy's thinking when this relationship is budding, and then between each chapter is the husband recalling what has happened to him throughout the course of the day. And they're very careful to never say anything relating to the murder that would, to the disappearance that would implicate that he did or did not do anything. Right. So you're really not entirely sure the entire way through, but you're feeling very sympathetic for Diary Amy because you're supposed to.
Right.
And then the second half of the book,
it changes. And so I went into this book knowing it was a thriller. And while I enjoyed the first half, I was like, this is not a thriller. Like, this is like, kind of a view of a relationship. But you hit that second half and just like everything gets twisted around. And you're still getting both perspectives, but you're now getting, what was it, Oklahoma Amy, or what it, live Amy.
who has not been murdered.
Who has not been murdered. And you're discovering this just sort of elaborate, plot twisty scheme. You have two people who are kind of unreliable narrators, and most people in this book aren't very likable people, but at least I was still sympathetic to them. Like, I didn't necessarily like them, but I was still interested in what was going on.
Yes.
And,
Amy is very, very clever, and you can respect her for her cleverness in a relatively, considering how out there it gets, it's still relatively realistic. You could actually think of somebody thinking this way.
Right.
Although towards the end, for me, myself, it did get a little bit too unrealistic. Although I don't believe Blue had that problem.
Well, I just saw it as an exaggeration.
Yeah.
Like, it was extreme. Like, I don't think this particular storyline and everything that happened in it would happen.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it was like an extreme view of the type of relationship where you have two toxic people who together become even more toxic to each other and just lie and manipulate and love each other.
Are codependent on each other.
Yeah. Because those relationships definitely exist. I've been in that relationship. And
I hit the body.
and while like their behavior was way over here, I think it was just a picture of that kind of relationship just blown out into a thriller. I mean, it was supposed to be a thriller.
Absolutely.
I expected it to be, not entirely.
I went in much more cold. More cold. I knew just about nothing about it, and I did enjoy the first half, thinking, oh, what a great psychological profile of a young couple. This is very realistic. I enjoy looking at the psyche of these two characters who are both very problematic human beings in their own right. And then second half, you're like, I knew it would probably be unreliable. I knew not to rely on the diary. And the way it's written, it's all wrapped up a little bit too neatly. Mm-hmm. So that even if you're going in it not knowing there's a twist, there's a twist.
Right.
But trying to figure out what that twist is did keep me guessing.
Yeah, and I had no idea, which is not unusual. Like, I usually don't see the twist coming, which is fine with me because I enjoy them more.
I usually don't. Yeah, this time I did.
Dax, my husband, like 2 minutes of the movie goes by and he's like, oh, this and this and this and this.
I was watching that.
Like, seriously?
Let me enjoy the ride. I liked the ride. Well, if you haven't read it before, One Hand Clapping, same author as Clockwork Orange.
Oh.
Yeah, but very, very different story.
I really liked Clockwork Orange. I read it
I
when
do.
I was really young,
but if you're looking for a Clockwork Orange, this is not it at all. Not even
no,
close.
this is much more contemporary thriller kind of stuff.
Oh, no, I mean One Hand Clapping. One Hand Clapping, although by the same author, is very, very different in tone. Oh, wait, no. Is this... That sounds wrong. Hold on, it might be Margaret Atwood, which is totally different, but would make more sense because, remembering the book, it feels like a Margaret Atwood book. Thank you, Blue. So while the
Uh-huh.
library reference over here is fixing it, I will explain the book. It did seem very much like a modern...
Anthony Burgess?
Okay,
I
see
don't
what
know
else
if
he
I'm...
writes. It might be... Okay, so Anthony Burgess.
No.
I'm
It's
notorious
like,
at
I know the name, but I have
mispronunciations.
never said it out loud.
Yeah, I read everything,
Look,
so
I'm
I don't
blue.
learn... Oh, quite literally, that's great! It was my first introduction to Unreliable Narrator, and you get a maid that's telling a tale of how the house she was living in, the owners were murdered, and it was horrible, and she's just innocent, and she's dumb. And the thing is that you get through this whole court case and her diaries and how she's an idiot. She's quite literally mentally handicapped to an extent, although we don't know how much because this is very long ago and psychological evaluations didn't exist. And cut to the end, she's a murdering mastermind. So it's a wonderful book and struck me as...
Yes, the author of Clockwork Orange. Sorry.
I was right. Good. So this struck me... Gone Girl struck me as a modern interpretation of that idea,
Mm-hmm.
only in a modern setting with a relationship as the focal point instead of a servant-master focal point, relationship being the focus. Although she was in a relationship in that one too. Oh, she was manipulating that relationship. So it's even more similar now that I think about it. I think this might just come off as a modern interpretation as that book.
Yeah. And there's also, I didn't catch this the first time I read it, but the second time, as I was looking a little more into it, like the whole, it's all set in Mark Twain's hometown, and
not far from where I grew up.
And there's like little bits of tie-ins and stuff to the Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, which I think were just like sort of literary references.
The author playing.
Yeah.
Look what I can do.
So that was kind of fun.
It was actually kind of neat reading some of those things because, like, the Tom Sawyer House and all those. I've been in all those, so I'm thinking about it, like,
neat.
oh, okay.
Yeah, I've never been out there.
It really added a little bit of extra because that is a really depressing area.
Yeah.
So as they're describing it, I'm like,
yeah, pretty much.
yep.
But yeah, overall, I really liked it. I liked the twists and turns. I liked the kind of playing around with stereotypical like gender roles and relationship roles and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of, I think, sort of commentary on the media and the way that modern trials are handled, which we know, but it was just kind of interesting to see how, like, everybody in this book, including the lawyers and the police, like, everything kept getting compared to movies. And, you know, is the cop acting like a cop, or is he acting like a cop in a movie?
Which is going to be great in the movie.
Yeah. So I kind of liked all that stuff. And
the way public opinion sways everything.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as a closed jury that hasn't heard of a case like this.
Right. And
you can't move the trial somewhere else like you used to be able to.
Right.
Which was something that actually came up in the Rockefeller case too. That's why initially I brought this up, was because Blood Will Out and Gone Girl were like a faux and really well written thriller version of the other book, where both of them examined modern trials and how public opinion will affect the trial. Both of them were covering manipulation and how public opinion, creating a new persona for yourself.
Right. Well, and not really having a persona of your own.
Yes.
Like you don't really know who you are. You're always pretending to be other people, and
you
then
so much
you
from
get
these
into a
memes.
relationship, and it just magnifies that.
You
know,
play
that
off each
person
other.
becomes part of who you are because of how you interact with them.
Mm-hmm.
So,
which was a feature of both books,
right, and which is true of relationships in general.
I got more examination out of it in the false book than I did
Yes.
in the real book.
Yes.
Which I think
Absolutely.
is why I would rate Gone Girl so much higher
Mm-hmm.
than Blood Will Out, because I got, from parallel stories, I got more out of the fiction one than I did out of the nonfiction.
Yeah, and I did too. And the nonfiction one was much more fun too.
I could read it just on the plane from start to finish.
Yeah, I think when I originally read it, like I just read it in a weekend.
I read it on the
Back
plane
when
ride
I just
down,
had reading weekends.
and I was just getting to the twist part when they do the lights out thing, like we're all supposed to pretend it's sleepy time,
Mm-hmm.
and then you only have 5 hours of sleep, and then you land at like 8 a.m., so you have a whole day to go through. So if you don't sleep then, you're about to be up for 48 hours.
Wow.
So I'm like, must put book down. And I'd put like my little visor over, and I was fortunate enough the seat next to me was empty, so I'd lay down, and then I'm like, iPad. I'd lift the whole thing up, and I'm like, one more little, and I'd read, and I'm like, go to bed, kid, go to bed, go to bed. I'm not sleeping, it's only 10 o'clock in my head. So by the time in my head it was 1 a.m. and I was ready to put the book down, we were like half an hour to England. I'm like, fine,
Yeah.
we're going to do 48 hours.
Yeah. But, yeah, so one meh and one yay!
For having such really different taste, we don't have very different taste.
Okay, so do you want to talk about any other interesting stuff that you've read?
Oh.
Or are reading?
There's the one we read this week. This week was Walter Kirn's Blood Will Out. The true story of murder, a mystery, and a masquerade. Which I actually kind of thought when I'm sorry, I'm dumb, but I'm like, oh, a masquerade. And I thought there was actually going to be like a masquerade ball where like something happens. Well, I think Rockefellers. And I'm like, yeah, masquerade ball. There's no masquerade. It's a lie.
Yeah.
It's masquerade in the like we're pretending to be somebody else, but not like no costumes.
Yeah.
Should be costumes. That's my review. Book would be better with a masquerade ball. Walter Kirn, you have been notified. So, for next week, it is my choice, and sadly, I don't have the cover on this one because they have such great cover art.
Yeah, they do.
We have the stupid dolphin books for this one. I'm very sorry.
I can probably.
Yeah, you pull it up.
I'll
talk.
pull it up on
You-
Goodreads.
She's good at data. I'm good at talking.
It's the detective. Okay.
So, Johannes Cable, The Detective by Jonathan L. Howard. I discovered the Johannes Cable completely by accident. I'd never heard anything about it at all. I was in the library, and they've got that little shelf that I always check out when I first get there. That's books we like.
Oh, this is.
Thank you, Chicago Public Library, for having that. It is awesome.
Oh,
Ooh, there we
can't
go.
see that very well. Well, it'll be posted on the website.
Show notes.
I'll use the pretty cover. Because both of his books have, well, he's more than one book, but
He actually
both-
has more than the 3. There are 3 in the series. Oh, I was so excited about this. Okay, so long story about how I got this, but we're going to listen to it because you're forced to. Don't hit fast forward. I stumbled on it and picked it up thinking, well, it's got a pretty cover. There was a skull on the cover, and I like skulls. So I pick it up, read it, and I'm enthralled. I read the whole thing in like 2 days, even though I really don't have time for that. And maybe a year goes by. Think nothing of it. I've recommended it to like 20 people. Nobody's read it. Nobody listens to my recommendations. And then And then I get, our library does a new website, and me being a library person, they forward me a survey for it, and I look at the thing, and right on the front cover is another Johannes Cable. And I'm like, whoa, what? This is a series? And I got so excited, so I looked through, and I put all of them on reserve. So it's got 3 in this series, but there are also, like, 4 other books that are separate from the series, and one of them's like the first book that's out of print that Johannes Cable ever came out with. Anyway, so I've read the first book. Blue is going to read the first book.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back and read all the other ones, including the one that's out of print. I've got that on hold too.
Yeah, I've actually had this book on my to-read list for, I don't know, like multiple years, because my creative director mentioned it a long time ago, and I looked it up and loved the cover. I was like, oh, this looks great! You know, I have like 400 books on my to-read list, so. But, so when she mentioned it, I was like, oh, I want to read it. So, we're reading it.
Yay!
Well, the second in the series, but that means I'm going to read the first in the series as well. That's the Necromancer? That's the first one, right?
Which is also why I picked it up. Johannes Cable, the Necromancer. Do you want
With a really
something
cool
with a good tag? I mean, yeah, I'm going to pick that up. So the second one is Johannes Cable, the Detective. I probably would have picked that one up too because there is a skeleton on it, but really, I'm glad I saw the first one first.
Yeah, the first cover is really, really good. So yeah, I'm excited to get to read it.
Yay! I'm so excited to have somebody share it with me. For those of you who would like to pick it up before next week when we will spoil it all for you, Johannes Cable is kind of a cross between Terry Pratchett, Discworld, and steampunk.
Oh.
Yeah. It's not really a steampunk world, but there are airships.
Huh. Okay.
I can't place a time
I remember
period to save my soul.
reading the description, but and thinking it sounded good, but I didn't really remember much about it.
Yeah. It's
so that's all
totally
awesome.
different world, but could so easily be our own. It's just, there's a necromancer, so probably it's not our own.
Yeah.
I mean, he's successful.
Yeah. This sounds good.
Wonderful. Anything that you've got?
What am I reading right now? Oh, actually, I'm reading a really good book for my food book club. Hold on. Sorry. It is Relish, My Life in the Kitchen, which, okay, I'm going to see if you can see this. No, you can't.
It's very pretty.
It's a graphic novel, but it is food writing. Give me the cover. Lucy Nisley? I'm not sure how to say
I think
her
that's
last
a
name.
silent K.
Nisley. So Lucy Nisley. My Life in the Kitchen. Relish, My Life in the Kitchen. And I have just started reading it, but it is kind of just I think an autobiography of her life. And she grew up with parents who were really into food and around food writers, and originally in New York City, and then her mom moved to a farm. So she's had this like wealth of food experience, and it's illustrated, and then there are little recipes, kind of scattered in, and so far it's really good. So I am reading that, and I just got through the whole series of the You'll Hate This. It's the Royal Spinous series.
Of course it is.
Uh-huh.
Were there desperate duchesses in it?
Yes, actually.
Oh, God.
Although it is very this I don't remember if this was originally a Vaginal Fantasy Club book, or no, it wasn't. I picked it up because there was a Christmas book, and it looked good. It's set in the 1930s.
She also listens to Mannheim Steamroller.
I do, yes. She hates Christmas.
Not because I'm Jewish. I just.
She doesn't like joy.
Which is really funny for somebody whose like main goal for the podcast today was don't laugh so much.
So yeah, if you like cozy mysteries, and it's very, the time period is very Downton Abbey-esque, and there's a lot of that similar class sort of structure where it's the 1930s, so everything has now fallen apart. People are still aristocrats and royalty, but they do not actually have any money. So there's a lot of that, which sounds very serious, but it's very fluffy, very, very fluffy, but so much fun. And in the audiobooks, the woman, I can't remember the woman's name who narrates them, but so good, so much fun. What depressing, terrible thing are you reading?
Let's explore diabetes with owls.
Oh, that's not too bad.
Actually, no, it's really funny, but it does have diabetes in the title, which I thought was kind of good considering what you're asking me. Let's explore diabetes with owls, which is a David Sedaris novel. I believe his latest. And they're fantastic little stories. It's just like all of the other David Sedaris except for the last one, which, hey, co-host, which had animals as the focus. And this is back to the autobiography style. What else am I reading? I am already, cheating. I'm already a week into the Johannes Cable detective. Oh my god, how precious is she? Hi, honey. I'm not going to ignore you. And what else have I read?
She pushed Basil out the window 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, it was a traumatic experience for everyone.
But she's so cute.
Okay, her tongue just stuck out. Pretty cute. What else have I been reading? I know I've been reading a lot because I've been taking the L. Oh my gosh, she's rubbing against my hand again. But I think the other ones have been graphic novels that I've been reading, which we went to C2E2. We'll be writing something about. We both went to this fantastic panel, What to Read. We'll write about that so that we can give the hosts some credit, too.
Yeah, that was great.
It was very well done. And I think that's about it for this month, what I've been reading. I've picked up a wonderful book. I actually think I'm going to run over and steal it real quick so I can hold it up.
Guinevere just went running with her.
Because I'm so awesome, the cats want to be near me all the time. Yay! Visual Dialogues. It's not even a comic book. It's just a book with a bunch of pictures that are gorgeous by Mark Nelson.
Yeah.
He is phenomenal. So, very, very pretty. If you like Alphonse Mucha at all, mashed up with a ton of sci-fi, good stuff.
Yeah.
There was something else, but I don't remember something else I was thinking of. I'm done.
And if you don't know what C2E2 is, it is a comic convention here in Chicago. That is, there's C2E2 and there's Wizard World, and C2E2 is the better of the two. It's newer, but it is a fun convention.
It has the biggest artist alley. I got to talk to the author and artist for the Kabuki series. Wow. And a ton of other people from artists that I really admire, like writers that are just phenomenal, and a lot of people writing their own stuff. And I
got the benefit by following around along with Kate. Like, I've been to a lot of conventions, but I don't talk to people. So I got to follow along and, like, get the benefit of all her conversations without actually having to talk to anyone, and it was great.
Most tables take me like an hour.
It's really fun.
But I pick up so many techniques. I have like 4 new artist supplies to buy.
Yeah. And I was, I am learning to draw. Learning to draw back there.
Pretty.
But don't really know enough to know all the questions to ask yet. So I was learning too in the background. It was fun. So, okay, is there anything else? Anything else? It would be great if I wrote notes.
Next week, every
busy
podcast
month.
has to be like one new thing we know to do. First one, we knew to be in the same room. Hey, big bonus. Second one, read the book. You had to read the book.
Yeah, I had to finish the book.
Third one.
Actually, I just finished Gone Girl like half an hour before this podcast.
Which is good because I was half an hour late. Third one was Kate, don't giggle. Fourth one, show notes.
Yeah. I had show notes for the first one, but...
Yeah.
And then everything just got crazy. It's been 2 months of crazy. Actually, I get Saturday, this is Wednesday, so a couple days from today, I don't have anything to do.
Whoa, what?
Nothing.
Oh, I have got some stuff. You want some of my stuff?
No.
You sure? I have a ton of
I don't have a drawing class.
I have a few meetings. You want to go to meetings for me?
No. I want to sit my butt on the couch and read.
I want to sit my butt on the couch and read. I want to sit my butt
or maybe
anywhere.
clean up some things, which needs to be done. But probably I'm going to sit on my butt and read.
Yep.
Because that sounds lovely.
It does. It does sound lovely. I'll do that someday.
Someday I'll be back to stuff to do. But one day of nothing to do.
Which for Blue is really unusual.
It is. I don't know how I get to this point where every day there's something, but every day there's something.
Mm-hmm. 4 things today. Well, Blue, where can everybody reach you?
All right. So you can find this on our website, pagespodcast.com. We are also on Goodreads and all the social networks, Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram, Google+. I am not super active on most of those. We're pretty good on Twitter. And we'll try to be better. We'll try to be better about the other ones. But all of those links can be found on the website. We do have a Goodreads group. If you want to come and read along with us and talk about it, the books, we would love it.
Yay! I am Kate Citron, and you can find me on all the various social media platforms and at katecitron.com. And I totally remember what else I was going to say. The book that I bought from Mark Nelson is Cats.
The cats!
They're all in hats. It's adorable. I didn't have that one with me to hold up, but if I did, you'd see how adorable this is. And that's all.
Yeah, I think we both I got a set. I wish I had that here to show too. The Avengers is cats. It's a little set of buttons.
Oh, was this the Oh, yes, the
Cat Avengers.
There was an entire booth of cats. I got a cat Doctor Who.
It was great.
Mm,
I'll have to look that up. I can put that in the show notes.
Cats and boats.
because the Hulk looks like Guinevere. We'll go around back there.
She does. And she kind of is. I mean, she did push Basil out of a window.
Yeah.
Guinevere, mad! Smash Basil! Sorry, that was really bad.
Yeah, they don't like each other very much.
Yet.
Okay, so I guess until next time.
See you next month.
Bye.